store for that. But before, let's see, I hand it over to Eric. I didn't bring my notes sheet for my thank yous, but my name's Katie Marshall. I'm the director here at MacRostie, and it's so fun to have everybody out. I love the Summer First Fridays. There's just such a great energy to them. And I want to give a shout out to our sponsors this evening. The sponsor for this exhibition is Paul Bunyan Communications, and the sponsor for our miniatures show is the Loggy Dome, and the sponsor for Pono's show is Russ White and Gay Reese. So we're going to give them all a big round of applause. We really appreciate the support that helps to make our programs possible, and we also got to give a shout out to our First Friday sponsor that helped us with the cover the food, and that is the Woods Counseling Center. So shout out to them and to board member Katie Heaton, who couldn't be here tonight, but we appreciate them and their contribution. All right, I think that's about all I have for business. We have our next First Friday is in July, but then close on the heels of that is our annual art fair on July 11th, so just a little save the date note for that. That's coming up before we know it. But for now, I'm going to hand it over to Eric Johnson to talk a little bit about his work, so please join me in welcoming him.
All right, thank you all for coming tonight. My name is Eric Johnson. I've been here before. I think probably 2008. I was in the juried show, the summer one, and got an award. And then I think that kind of from there, I think I did a solo show, maybe 2011, 10, somewhere in there. I grew up on a farm. A little history. I guess I grew up on a farm southwest of Fargo, about 35 miles. We didn't have any art in school, and then my dad passed away when I was 18. I didn't know what I wanted to do in my life, so I went to NDSU. First I wanted to be a radio DJ. My English teacher kind of convinced me to just go to NDSU and try some things. I had, like I said, no art in school, but I had a couple older sisters that liked to draw and taught me tracing and basic drawing things. And also, one of them went to Valley City State and did graphic design there. So I remember her bringing me clay to make some things with, and so I had some art, at least introduction before I got to NDSU. And then at NDSU I started taking classes. My first class was a 2D design class, and I got an A in it, and I was pretty happy about that. I was a B average student in school, and then eventually a couple years after that became an art major, and I got into printmaking probably, so I started NDSU 91. Around 93, I decided to go and to be an art major. I had tried psychology, and I'm terrible at math. Couldn't get through that, and then I tried to do a double major. That didn't work out either, so I ended up with a Bachelor of Science in art with a minor in art history, and then I had no idea, common theme of what to do. And so my printmaking professor, Kent Kaplinger, suggested going to grad school, and then I could maybe teach after that. So I went to the University of North Dakota. It was right after the flood there in '98, so the town was a mess, and the department there was a printmaking professor that just retired, so I kind of had a couple people before they hired a full-time person that was there when I graduated. I graduated there in 2001 and went on to look for jobs. Didn't find any jobs, started working a couple full-time jobs, not art related, and then after a couple years of doing that, had a realization that I just needed to stop working one of the jobs and focus more on art, so I did that. And my professor at NDSU, Kent Kaplinger, had started a printmaking education and research studio, and I became a kind of assistant / visiting artist there, and I did that for about 13 years. That one piece back there, the landscape, it says 13 years of my artistic life. That was inspired by that. So I spent 13 years kind of helping and assisting with some classes, teaching, and also I had access to an amazing print studio. They had a couple big presses, lithography presses, and a whole separate studio of screen print equipment that I I don't have any screen prints in here, but yeah. So then 2018, I bought my own press and went to Salt Lake City, Utah, and brought it back. I didn't have a place to put it, but the mall in Fargo, the West Acres Shopping Center, has they've been really amazing to artists in our town. They do a visiting artist program where they'll give you a space to use. So I reached out to them after I found this press. They said, sure, we'd love to have you. And I was there from June until the end of September of 2018. In the meantime, I had got a studio set up in my garage of our place, and then started printing. So the work that's in this exhibit is kind of a mix of two shows that I put together. One was called The Nature of Things, and that one is the one that with that title is in that corner, that little one. And then the second one is that landscape. That was the title of the second show. So for this exhibit, I've kind of combined those two. So I did some editing, but there's still 28 pieces or so. This isn't all I've done in the last 15 years, but it's quite a bit of the stuff. What else should I talk about? Any? The process, yeah.
Yeah,
So the process, yeah, it'll be, I'm sure, a question. So the process is the reduction method of relief printmaking. So with printmaking, there's four main types. There's screen print, which is a lot of times your t-shirts, but also it can be, Andy Warhol did screen printing for some of his the Maryland things, and the soup cans are screen prints. Then there's lithography, that's either using a stone or aluminum plate. It's a very technical process I'm not very good at. And then there's intaglio and etching, and I've done a few of those. I don't have any in this show, and my press could do them, but I'm not set up to do them at home. But and then relief. So relief is, I think, the oldest form of printmaking. It's basically kind of like making a stamp. So if I wanted to make a black and white of this tree, I would just carve out all of the white or the negative space. And I use these tools. These aren't the tools that I started with. I started out with, cheap tools. And you can also do this with wood. And I had started out in my first printmaking class doing a woodcut, but we had cheap tools and probably really cheap wood, and it was not a good result for me. So I was introduced to this material. It's called Sintra. And so this reduction process is taking one block for all the colors. Most of the time with color relief printing, you would need one block for each color that you're printing. So if I, like some of these prints have 20 to 30 colors. I don't usually keep track, but there's a lot. I would need to have one block the same size as the image for every color. With this process, I'm rolling on the first color with the brayer. Most of the time in printmaking, you're making an addition. So you'll see in the middle of these prints, there's a number. That's the addition number. I usually do 10 to 20. So for the first color, you would print all 20 of those pieces of paper, and then clean off your block, and then wherever you would want that color to stay, you have to carve out, and that kind of creates a recess. So then when you roll on the next color, that won't pick up ink, and so it's one layer at a time. Usually it takes I'd say up to an hour and a half to carve, depending on how big it is and how much detail there is. And then about, pretty much no matter what the size, it's usually an hour to an hour and a half to print, because you have to roll up each color block every time you print. And then, then by the end, Most of the time, there's not much left of the block. This is the block for that red flower with the yellow sun behind there. And you can see all that's left is just that brown outline on that. Other than that, anything else? Questions? Yeah, questions. I love questions. No questions, yeah.
I assume you have to test it before you actually put it on your print. So like you gouge out your spaces, do you have a test piece or two that you do, or do you just trust that you got it all?
I just pretty much trust,
Okay.
yeah. Because I'm not, I start out with the number of pieces of paper that I wanna do in the edition. Sometimes I'll print a color and it will not look right or the way that I want, like that one in the corner. I think I probably started out with 10 in that edition, and just trying out different colors, I ended up with 5, or I maybe like 15. So I have a lot of trial proofs of that one, they're called, with say T/P in the middle. But that's the one that I liked in that edition. But yeah, I don't do a lot of testing.
How do you get those spirals to do those colors all the way?
These two, I got a new tool that I found could make really nice kind of curvy marks. And how do I get them? You just get I think I don't maybe have one of those tools here, but you just get it in the centra enough, and you just kind of push from the back and keep it moving, and you can kind of make it flow a little bit.
Is there an order to the colors you use?
Is there an order?
Yeah, like for example, do you put your lighter colors first and you end up with your darker colors, or?
Sometimes I usually start with the yellow or a blue first, but I think most of the time I work in color. A group of blues or a group of yellows I'll do. So I'm looking at that one with the red flower again. I probably did most of the yellows and the oranges first, and then I think I went to the green, and then the blue, and the purple, and the browns. But yeah, for a while it was it took some time to, I think all through my school at NDSU, I probably was not this good at colors. It took some time to figure out what I could lay over the top with which ones. And then also if you add white to any color, it'll make it more opaque, so that kind of makes it work better. So I go through a lot of white.
What is the paint medium? Acrylic?
It's a oil-based printmaking ink. So yeah, it comes in it used to be metal can, now they're turning it into plastic cans. It's pretty thick, and I usually mix it with a dryer to help it dry faster, because some of the colors will take weeks to dry.
Are the blocks, the firmness, is it somewhere between linoleum and wood?
Yeah, probably. It's a little bit harder than the linoleum, and softer than the wood. I don't think I yet even tried a linoleum block until I started doing some college classes. So some of these are linoleum or lino cuts.
How many times do you press do a different pressing, you carve it and then you press it again? How many times do you do that in one of these processes?
How many colors?
Well, I guess you just have to carve it and then press it and then carve it and press it. How many times? Do you have an idea of how many times you can do that?
No.
No idea.
What's the edition number on that one? We can figure it out though, probably. If someone's good at that.
Remember?
19?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's 19 of them. There's probably 25 to 30 colors. So all 19 of those have to go through 25 times. So that? 2, 3 months, I don't know. I'm not good at math, like I said, so 25 times 19 is,
So you get it
475.
470. Yeah.
So you've mastered your registration marks?
The registration is crucial, yeah, and all of these, are made with a registration method that, I won't say I came up with it, but we were introduced to using punch paper and little tabs for screen print. And one time I was cutting out a piece of this material, with the Sintra on top, and it made a little corner, and I figured out if I went with a little bit higher block, I could run that through the press itself. So that's been I used to lose a bunch of prints because I had to move them from the whatever table I was inking on to the press. And this way I can take the ink block, put it in the registration, and use tabs. And so I don't usually lose any now unless I put the block in upside down, which
I'm sure it
happens.
happens.
That's why I write, usually I write top and bottom, or at least top on the block on the edge. So I don't lose a lot now, but I've seen that used, some people are trying to sell those little tab things too. Yep.
Before you start, do you create some kind of a full color rendition of what you want it to be when you're done? I mean, like, something like this with all these colors, how do you know what colors to pick and what?
I don't do a plan. I tried that when I was an undergrad, like on my computer, and it didn't work. It didn't look like what it came out to be. So I just know, like a lot of times I'll just say, I know I want a blue background, so I'm gonna start with a light blue and work darker or whatever. But I'll print a color, and then as I'm carving, I have it hanging next to me or next to me on the table when I'm working, and just kind of figure it from there. I usually run out of stuff to cut away, so then I know that area is done. So I paint too, but I don't paint like this. Usually I paint more like, I don't paint like the detail stuff. My paintings are more like this. I do drip stuff. I haven't really done into, I maybe could paint detail, but I just haven't got there yet.
What's the largest size print that you've done?
Sure. The largest I've done is about 3 feet by, or 38 inches by 26 or something like that. So 3 feet by 2 feet roughly. And that one I don't have here, but that's a cityscape. It's, if you ever get down to Fargo, it's at the mall, right before you go downstairs. And they've got the block too. I didn't realize I gave them the block, but they have the block. Any other questions?
Why is it destructive?
Oh, destructor? Well, because I'm destroying the plate as I'm carving. You know, I can't make any more of these. So it's self-destructor in my life too. Sometimes it's been like I'll self-destruct. My choices are not good sometimes. So yeah, I guess that's why. Yeah. But yeah, they sometimes call this process a suicide process because you can't go back out a step that you're in. Interesting. Anything else?
Thank you.
Thank you.